I know I literally made a video on the Sixers yesterday, but I'm making another one because as I made that video yesterday, the tweet y'all see on screen had not been announced yet. Jared McCain is out indefinitely after an MRI revealed a lateral meniscus tear in his left knee. The team announced today on Saturday as I record this video, yesterday as y'all see it. I think they're cursed. I think they're cursed. I'm literally going to explain some reasons why I think this team is cursed. I don't know what the plan is at this point for the rest of the season with things going like this, but I'm going from the point where I was like, oh yeah, the Sixers are going to make the play and they're going to be competitive as the year progresses, all that type of stuff. Now I'm kind of like, maybe they tank. Like, I know that sounds weird to say, right? But maybe they do. I'm kind of at a loss for what you do if you're the Sixers right now at this season. They just lost one of their best scorers on a team that has scored the ball terribly this year. Like, I'm going to break down some of these numbers as we get into the video, but this team is just so unlucky. I don't know. It's brutal. Losing Embiid to a sinus fracture. We're about to talk about how rare that is. And then losing Jared McCain to a torn meniscus, which is realistically, if it's fully turned and requires surgery, that's a 4 to 6 months recovery. He's probably out for pretty much the rest of the season, at least the regular season. And realistically, without Embiid for a chunk of time from that sinus fracture, they might be looking at missing the playoffs. Like, seriously. I thought this team was going to be fine with regards to the playoffs, but it just looks like that's not going to be the case. Before we hop into it, discuss more, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,000 subscriber mark on the channel, uploading every single day, multiple videos every day about the NBA. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's talk about the Sixers season so far. So we'll start with Joel Embiid's injury. I saw this tweet from an article that I was reading. I dug up a study from 2020 that found just 53 incidences of facial fractures over 34 years of NBA play, which include only 15 orbital bone fractures and 1 sinus fracture. Embiid has 3 by himself. For context, that is 15,000-ish seasons in terms of total seasons for players. Only 16 orbital bone or sinus fractures. Embiid now has 2 orbital bone fractures and a sinus fracture. And like he said, they're not re-aggravations of existing injuries. They're not like he's not prepared. His body's not in the right place. It's extremely bad luck. It really is. And so, yes, you can, I think people give Embiid a lot of flack these days for all of his struggles injury wise. And I think fairly so in a lot of ways, but injuries like this, man, they're not really his fault. They're just fluke, unfortunate accident injuries. And obviously Jared McCain, a guy who was healthy last year in college, has had a great rookie year. You can't blame him for a torn meniscus. It's just really unfortunate, plain and simple. And it puts them in a really bad spot because that's 2 of the most important players on this team. When you look at the numbers, I mean, Embiid obviously has only played in 7 games this year, but despite the lack of efficiency for him so far, he's obviously their most important player. Was legitimately an MVP. I mean, he won the MVP 2 years ago and was having an awesome year last year as well, before having all the other issues that he had last year with injuries and some of the playoff underperformance and stuff. But he had some big games in the playoffs as well. And then he's just had real serious injury issues this year. Going into the year, I had Embiid as a top 5 player in the world though. So let's not talk about Embiid. Let's not talk like Embiid's not an absolutely crucial piece to this team. And Jared McCain has been the most consistent scorer on this roster, averaging 15 a game and doing it efficiently. Yes, Tyrese Maxey's scoring a lot more, but Maxey's efficiency has been really poor this year. Paul George is having the worst season of his career, shooting 41% from the field, almost 32% from 3, but still really bad. Only averaging 16 a game. This team is just struggling for scoring in the first place without Embiid, and that's while having Jared McCain healthy. Now they're not going to have Jared McCain for the next 4 to 6 months, in all likelihood, assuming he needs surgery, which it sounds like he probably will. And that's for a team that, let's just look at the numbers. They are currently the 2nd worst team in the league in terms of points per game. They are overall in field goal percentage, tied for the 4th worst team in field goal percentage in the league. 3-point percentage, they are the 3rd worst 3-point percentage team in the league. They just don't score the ball well. And that's with Jared McCain, who was the most consistent shooter on this team this year. How are they going to put the ball in the basket? Seriously, that is the question. This team is already one of the worst scoring teams in basketball. Now they don't have Embiid likely for a few more weeks, and they're not going to have Jared McCain at all. They still have really been completely unable to build any sort of cohesiveness and chemistry between their theoretical big 3 with Tyrese, Paul George, and Embiid, because all 3 of those guys have had injuries already this year. They've only played a total of 3 games together. And now they're not going to be able to build any more chemistry because Embiid's going to be out for a while. And I'm sure by the time Embiid comes back, Paul George is going to get hurt again, because that's just how this season is going. This is a year from hell for the Sixers. It is just a disaster. I think I used that term in my Sixers video yesterday as well, but it is just going so bad. And I am at the point, when you look at the numbers, when you look at the standings, I really think we're kind of at the point. I just accidentally closed my standings, but I think we're kind of at the point. If you look at the conference standings, yes, they are still not that far out of the play-in. And the Nets just traded Dennis Schroeder and are likely going to try to tank. They're probably going to offload Cam Johnson, maybe Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe even a couple other guys at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline. So they're probably going to tank. But the Pistons are like relatively competitive. I'm not saying they're a great team. I know their record isn't great, but they're like decently competitive, and they've played a really tough schedule as well. They have a lot of tough losses to this point in the season. When you look at the standings for the entire league, though, top 4 teams get the best draft odds at the number 1 pick. This is a very deep draft as well, with Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, who might actually be the number 1 pick right now. I know Flagg has struggled as of late. That's a topic for another video. And several other really talented guys in this draft class. This is a deep, hyper-talented draft class. The Sixers do, I believe, own their first-round pick. And when you look at the numbers, look, the Jazz are atrocious. The Wizards are even more atrocious. I think those 2 teams are kind of no-brainers for top 4, or I guess bottom 4 records in the league. And the Pelicans, realistically, they're going to trade Brandon Ingram. Zion's out for who knows how long. They're having tons and tons of issues in their own right, playing terrible basketball. They will likely also probably be a bottom 4 team if they know it's good for them anyway. Now, the fourth team is much more of a question mark. And I think that could actually be a goal. As stupid as it is to say, I know a lot of people don't enjoy tanking, but this team isn't going anywhere. They have no real chance of going anywhere good this season. They might maybe squeak into the play-in if they really get things together. But losing McCain for most, if not all, of the rest of the season certainly puts a dent into those hopes. And there's no reassurance whatsoever that even when Embiid does eventually return again, that he will be healthy enough and play good enough and stay healthy enough for them to make up the deficit that they're facing. So I realistically think having a bottom 4 or 5 record in basketball is pretty feasible for the Sixers at this point. LaMelo is going to come back to the Hornets at some point. The Trailblazers are a little too competitive for their own good. The Pistons are also too good. Like, they're probably going to be a play-in team. The Nets are still probably too competitive. Now, losing Schroeder is a massive hit for that team, and a big does a lot of damage to their hopes of being even halfway competitive and being a play-in team. So they're probably going to be pretty bad as well. And the Raptors have done a pretty good job of organically tanking while playing their young guys and playing a lot of competitive basketball. But I think they'll also be in that discussion. So realistically, it's the Nets, maybe the Trailblazers, the Raptors. Those are kind of the other teams that are going to be right at that bottom of the league this year. But I think at this point, the Sixers season has gone so poorly that you seriously might have to consider just trying to like throw in the towel and get a better draft pick. Like, this has just been a disaster. Plain and simple. It's been such a disastrous season. If I was a Philly fan, man, I would be depressed. And the one thing that they do have going for them in terms of trying to lose, if that were to become the plan, is that when you looked at strength of schedule, they have one of the harder schedules left, which is only good if you're trying to tank, really. But among Eastern Conference teams, the only Eastern Conference teams above them are New York, who obviously is going to be a playoff team, Detroit, who's not bad enough to truly tank, Cleveland, who's very good, Atlanta, who's very good, and I think I maybe missed one. No, I think that's it. So those are all the Eastern Conference teams that have harder schedules than Philly left. Whereas other tanking teams that I mentioned, teams like Toronto, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Chicago, Washington, all have easier schedules than the Sixers do, which might also do them some favors, having a little bit of a harder schedule for the rest of the season. But this year has just been a total disaster. At this point, it might literally be like, I know we're only a third of the way through the NBA season or so, but we're kind of at the point where it's just like, yeah, we might just want to move on to next year. It's really gotten that bad. And that's kind of sad, but it's where we are. So with that being said, that is going to do it for today's video. Hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I will be back with more NBA content very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.